share a link to the page so people can tune in. Because right now
You
we are
sharing
live.
you sharing that on Facebook, right?
I did. I'm about to share it again.
Okay,
Just give me
okay.
1 second.
And
First, can you hear me with the fan on, or is it too loud?
no, I don't need. I didn't even. If you wouldn't have said anything about a fan, I hadn't even heard it.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Gavin Reshaw Presents. I'm privileged to introduce and have our guest today, a gentleman that I have known for almost, just say a long time.
Yeah, man.
Well, we're like what, 14 or 15 years?
We first met was after Katrina, right?
I think it might have been a little bit before Katrina.
Before?
Met. Just a little bit because there was that LaVon Jones um, case that was going on, and I remember I knew I met Harold Muhammad, brother Harold. I don't know.
Was that the brother who was killed in the French quarters
Yes,
in front of Razoo's?
in front of Razoo's. Yeah, that was in 2000. That was actually like New Year's Eve 2004.
Lord have mercy, man.
And yeah, and 2005 was when everyone was rallying, and then of course before anything happened, that's when the flood started. Katrina came, so that changed a lot. Death. Their trial was, I think, took place in another parish because the courts were closed down in New Orleans.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, I think it was in Lake Charles, if I'm not mistaken.
Where they did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, brother, Minister Willie Muhammad, he is the head of the Mosque 46 in New Orleans East off Diamond Road. Brother Willie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for the opportunity, man. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think, not gonna say I think, I know that our people really have a benefit of a person like you being in the legal field, you know, because a lot of times we have lawyers, but we don't have, it's not too many lawyers that I know that have your lawyer, the legal expertise, and have the consciousness and the love for our people. So thank you.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Yeah, always big respect to you and the work that you've done, and especially that the nation does, because I see that your community, the Nation of Islam, while it may not be a religious, my religious following, is something that I have great respect for based off the principles that they teach about group economics. Something that I always see the Black Muslims with, their stuff together.
Striving too, man. Striving too.
Yes, sir. So we will talk about Minister Farrakhan and Facebook and some other issues, but I wanted to ask you first off, how did you get involved with the Nation of Islam? Could you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm born and raised in the city of New Orleans, uptown New Orleans, in an area that's known as the Irish Channel, right?
Right.
And what led me into the Nation of Islam, I don't know if you've ever, this activist, he passed, he was a renowned social worker here in the city of New Orleans, Morris F.X. Jeff Jr.
That was my mentor, actually, at one time.
So his wife was a teacher at my high school, Walter L. Cohen, right? And she was known for being like this hard history teacher, U.S. history. And so I was taking a class and clowning around and like others failing. And then one day I just like, something, let me start playing around. Let me start reading, right? So I started reading the history book. And as I read the history book, I started asking myself the question, what stood out to me was what this country did to Native Americans. And I said, man, if they did this to Native Americans, what did they do to us? So that led me to start reading about Black history. Then I came across Malcolm X, and then I came across a book written by Louis Lomax, When the Word is Given, about the Nation of Islam, the Mosaic Elijah Muhammad. Then I found out about Minister Farrakhan, and just hearing the minister, seeing the minister on Donahue, It just inspired me. And then from there, my freshman year at Xavier University, I came into contact with, well, previous to that, that summer, I had interviewed Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and I got the telephone number to the mosque, but every time I would call, I could never get anybody on the phone. But that freshman year in Xavier University, I met Brother Jason Muhammad, and he brought me to the mosque, and it's been history ever since.
Okay. And once Brother Jason brought you to the mosque, Brother Jason was who,
Brother,
who was he?
Brother Jason was just a regular believer. He was a college student at Xavier University. Brother Harold, may Allah be pleased with him. Brother Harold was the minister. And so I accepted the teaching of the Mozambique Elijah Muhammad under Brother Harold Muhammad, who has passed some years ago. So I came under him. And if you ever heard Brother Harold teach, he's very strong and fiery and passionate.
Well, yeah, Brother Harold was the one that I met, that I was talking to you about earlier, that I met. We met right before Katrina, because I remember he was on, the what we call the public access channels here in New Orleans. Like,
yes.
I can't think of a few of the names. I remember Between the Lines,
Cox Cable Access show.
Channel 8. I remember Between the Lines with Paul Boyer and Lloyd Dennis. Yeah, Paul Boyer, because I know Paul who just passed last year, unfortunately, because of him being involved with St. Aul, which is a school out. And I knew Chewy had a TV show, The Ballad or the Bullet, and I used to watch those, and just listen. Hester Report. I can't forget that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, they're because the contract is ending. They're ending that cable access station.
Oh really?
Yeah, because the city had some type of deal with Cox Cable when they came, that for so many amount of years while they're here, they will give so many stations to community access. But I know the time is nearing when they're supposed to be stopping those. I think it's coming up.
Well, this is the new black media. This is the new media, talking here to you through YouTube, because now, YouTube doesn't have, obviously FCC guidelines and regulations that I can go through. It's just that people anyone now who has, a computer or telephone now, which is a smartphone, as we call it, you can just set up a channel. You have a channel right there. You have an audience. Now, my audience may not be as big as Steve Harvey's platform, which
not yet.
Well, he lost.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, he got his wake up call.
That's crazy. Even I think the one article that I read, they said the ratings were not bad, and they still canceled that show, and they replaced him as the host of
Little Big
Children
Shots.
That are doing his things. Yeah, Big Shots. Yeah, the Big Shots.
Well, he got, and I want to talk with you about that since we brought that up. Yeah, that was right around the time when he had that sit down with Monique over integrity versus money. And he told Monique about, well, we ain't in the money. This is the money game. Forget the integrity game, because if you worry about the integrity, you're gonna be starving. Basically, what he told me and he told others is that he would sacrifice his self-dignity for $1. I think what he also told me is he's willing to put on a dress when he said that.
Well, it was interesting. I would encourage you and the viewers to go watch this interview that he did with D.L. Hughley. I don't know if you saw that on D.L. Hughley's show, and they asked him about that, and he said that there was actually more to that conversation, but of course on the editing floor, it was edited in a way which he acknowledged that he said that he felt like it didn't come off the way that he would have liked it, and it made him appear that way. But he said that, they had more of a conversation to that. And it's something, man, that, wow. And now if it was edited in that way, where it seems like he was defending not standing up, and they still cut his show because of that, then what that shows is that as black men on television, they don't want you to take any type of stance, And I think at our brother's core, he has a good heart, because there have been things that he has done and put his neck on the line for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and to promote certain events. But you know, hopefully, we'll see what else comes out of this. But that's unfortunate that they're cutting his shows, which shows even more so why we need to have our own.
Well, yeah, that may be, but he may have. But I've heard most for people that know Steve Harvey, I
Mm,
haven't heard good things about him per se.
wow.
As far as it goes with the Monique thing, my understanding, I listened to an interview with Isaiah Washington, who's a great actor.
Hmm.
He was actually in the movie Get on the Bus. He was also
Hmm.
on Grey's Anatomy at one point. Well, he stated that that conversation he had with Monique, he said the reason why he flipped out really was because he had gotten word from NBC that his show was canceled. And the way that the editing room made that look like was that he was flipping out at Monique, angry at her, and he should have said something. Really, it was about that show being canceled. It
Mm,
was around that time when he got word, and he's being replaced now with Kelly Clarkson, and he's also being replaced by Melissa McCarthy, who,
dang.
uh, yeah, yeah, his ratings were not that bad, but
Mm,
now he's lost two big sources of income, and he still has his radio show. But I think it's a reminder of what happens that no matter what your status is in America, if you're a black man, and even if you coon it up or you you don't take a stance and so forth, they'll come at you. They'll cut
mm.
you off.
So they got upset for him having Monique on the show as a guest.
I don't know if they were. I don't think it was that they were upset that he had Monique on the show as a guest. I think what it was, they canceled the program per se. It may have been. I don't think it was. Could have been production cost. But what I understand was that he had learned that his show was being canceled, and that's part of the reason why you saw him snap and angry at her when he was fussing at her. So
What, what
they
you,
made it look like he was snapping at Monique over her calling out Netflix and racism, and also calling out Steve Harvey and
mm,
the way that he acted, because privately he commended her and agreed with her, but then publicly he shamed her.
mm,
And that's what Monique was upset about. But
yeah.
he and honestly, the things that I'm seeing, and we're going to get into that, what she said about Oprah Winfrey, or Okra, what I saw her do with Michael Jackson,
Mm,
I think a lot of black people are upset about that, and they're looking at her, looking at Monique. Maybe she was right.
mm,
Lee Daniels' two TV shows got canceled in the same week.
mm,
Empire and Star have been canceled, which I'm not a fan of Lee Daniels. I feel that his movies done more damage to black people than Birth of a Nation could ever do.
mm. Wow. Wow, that's interesting. And just like what you said, it shows that if you take any stance, they're not pleased with that, and they see it as a threat. And it just shows even more so like we got to understand that like sometimes our people can try to play it safe and you still end up losing. I think make me think about the scripture where Jesus said, those who seek to save their lives will lose their lives, and those who seek to lose their lives will save it. So it's a lesson for us that we got to stand up. You know what I'm saying? Because in the end, they will respect you for it. I see that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You stand up in other people, but then also we have such a wealth of black entertainment, a talent, and finances, and intellectuals, and intelligence that we can come together and really create our own. You know.
All right. Speaking of which, and I'm about to get into the minister, but are there programs that the Nation of Islam does or is trying to do? I don't know if you can say too much, but with blacks who are either Christian or Jewish, are there or
You
any
know,
other?
you know, that's very good. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with the 1010 with the first with the Millions More movement and with the 10-10-15, the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, where the minister launched what was called the local organizing committee, right? And what the local organizing committee does, if it's done right, it gives those who are not per se Muslims, but of other faiths, other ideologies, other philosophies, or who may not even be of any faith, but they want to do something in a collective manner to help promote and promote the black love, black wealth, and just better our condition, right? So that's the mechanism. And I can just tell you, here in the city of New Orleans, that's what that's something that when you're saying that, it makes me think about us relaunching it. But we definitely need like people like yourself and other people who will be able to come and help us to be able to be able to develop it in such a way where it can bring more of our brothers and sisters who are not quote unquote Muslims or in the Nation of Islam, where they can bring their skills, bring their intellect, bring their resources, where we can begin to come together and do something that can benefit our people here in the city of New Orleans. So that's something we're going to look more into, and I'll definitely be reaching out to you.
Oh, most definitely. And you say that's the 10-10-10 program?
That's called the Local Organizing Committee.
Okay.
The local it was started after the Million Man March, right? And
right.
It has various ministries. It has the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Arts and Culture, the Ministry of Spirituality, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Information, where it gives those defense. I think also justice, the Ministry of Justice. So where it can give those who have these skills, these expertise like yourself, where you can come in and still participate, and we're working toward like we're working toward goals that benefit our community, but it's not under religious context.
Sure. Oh, that's good. That's wonderful. Now, Minister Willie, I want to ask you, when did you become head of the local Mosque 46?
I became head of the local Mosque 46 in the year of 2003. 2003. So I've been serving in this capacity as student minister since 2003. And a lot of times when I go places, like I was at a wedding that I conducted, and they got ready to pray for have the food to be eaten. People say, "Oh, let's get the minister." And one of the things I tell people, like, you don't need me to pray over your food. Like, what makes you think that my prayer is any more sacred than your prayer? So when I see the term minister, I see myself as really as Brother Willie. But when I see the term minister, I don't view it like some people view it in this religious world. I view it as what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches. The word minister means a servant. So I see myself as a servant. I don't get caught up in like, oh, that's the minister. Let's chill out. No, I like to laugh. I like to talk about movies. I like to have fun as well. But I see myself as a servant. So I've been in this position since 2003.
Okay, good. Good. So that was right before Katrina when you started.
Right like before Katrina. Yeah, right before Katrina.
And when the flood happened, how did you like to come back? What did the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan reached out to you as well? Or?
Well, not necessarily, but I was getting offers to relocate to Houston and relocate to places like Atlanta, but I just didn't feel right in my spirit, man, leaving the city of New Orleans at a point where it was down like this, right? I didn't feel good about the idea or the possibility of leaving the city of New Orleans where the Nation of Islam's community was down and not fully functioning. So, and I thought about the work that Minister Harold did and all of those before me, and I didn't want to just leave like that. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had once said, and I had a sit down with him when he visited the city after Katrina in 2006. There were some people who were saying like, hey, you've heard the minister speak about God's judgment and chastisement of America using the natural forces of wind, rain, hail, snow, earthquakes, hurricanes. And so people were saying like, yo, man, the minister said that if they don't treat the people right in New Orleans, there's going to be another one. Y'all need to move now. Y'all need to do this. But I remember talking to the minister, and he said, brother, wherever our people are, we need to be there. And that was further confirmation for me to stay here in the city of New Orleans. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who quietly, and many people don't know this, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote checks totaling up to $50,000 that were given to families who were affected by Katrina. And the minister doesn't talk about it publicly. And in addition to that, he brought the Final Call newspaper staff down here, and they did a documentary to help bring attention to the plight and what was not being covered in the national news about Katrina. And he took a delegation to Cuba so that they can study Cuba's natural disaster response system. But you know, the minister, when he told me about wherever our people are, we need to be there. So I returned back, and he told us that our rebuilding will be better than our existence before Katrina, and it definitely was and has been
That's right.
and is.
Yeah, I have that documentary, and of course, you know, one of the times we met, I wrote a book on Katrina, and I
Yes.
quoted things that Minister Farrakhan had said, because he even said that the levees were blown in New Orleans, and they tried to correct him on C-SPAN about that. But does he still? Well, I don't know if he still holds to that belief, but
well, what the minister had said, he actually quoted an article that he came across where it was talking about that there was a diver that said they saw charred remains or charred fragments of the levees. And so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that, I know that people, I'm paraphrasing, they're debating back and forth whether or not it was blown. He said, then you go and bring those people who have the ability to assess this information to see if it is true, because it's not far-fetched to think that they have blown the levees or whatever, because we have the history books where they did it one time before. I think it was in 1927.
Yeah. They were also accused of doing it in Hurricane Betsy in '65.
Exactly.
My mom had talked about it, and a few friends, they said they knew about it. I heard this, and I don't know how true it is, but the mayor at that time, Skiro, before he died, he made a deathbed confession that they did do it. Now, I don't know if that's true.
Something to think about, you know?
Right. And when you look at how New Orleans is now, and you and I both live in New Orleans East, the area has not been rebuilt like it should have. You know, and they wanted to turn this area as well as the Lower Ninth Ward into green space. So I just think about that, and, you know, yeah, maybe there's some truth to it.
Yeah, but, and if you think about it, if it weren't for those activists, you know, like the Malcolm Suber, Cess 5, Brother M. Tangalisi, you know, there were many grassroots organizations and that fought to say, no, we're not going to allow you all to turn this into a green space, because now these are those same areas where they're buying property and gentrifying these areas, the same areas that they were saying would be fit for people to live in.
Yeah. I never thought I would see the day when I'd see bicycle lanes in the Lower Ninth Ward.
Yeah, that's crazy.
East, yeah. Well, since we're on the subject with Minister Farrakhan, as most people know, a couple of weeks ago, Facebook announced a ban of people that produce hate speech, including Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, and they also mentioned Minister Louis Farrakhan, which I disagreed with, because I don't believe that Minister Farrakhan deserved to be in the category with those men. But what's interesting is that a couple of years ago, Minister Farrakhan actually did an interview with Alex Jones. Yes. So could you tell us what has been the minister's and the nation's response to Facebook and Instagram with these bans?
Well, I can tell you one thing. The minister is not somewhere sitting around weeping and sad because of the ban, right? But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan saw social media for what it could be if it's used right, is a tool to further help to elevate and educate not only our people, but the overall society, you know, to expose them to what's going on in this country. And for those who are viewing, and even if yourself, if you haven't had the opportunity to see it, you can go to www.noi.org and you can watch the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's address at Father Flagler's Church, St. Savina, where he addressed this whole thing about him being quote unquote dangerous. And really, I think they just really looped those other guys in, Alex Jones, and they mentioned two other people that I have never ever heard of. But I think they really looped them in as a way to limit the anger that will come from the Black community if they would have just banned the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. at the root of that ban, my brother, I believe that it is another attempt by the ADL, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and other members of the Jewish community who, as the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan has said, has hijacked Judaism. Not talking about those who sincerely follow the Torah, those who sincerely follow the teachings of Moses. Those are different. That's not the ones that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan we have an issue with, but we have an issue with those who exploit the intelligence, the talent, the creativity from our community, and they fatten their pockets. And we have an issue with those who what they want for their community, the right of independence, of self-determination. These are the same ones that are fighting and have been fighting efforts by Black people to gain that for ourselves. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that this is just another effort to try to silence him, but they can't ban the minister because what they thought was going to be a ban is, if you're seeing now testimonies of people who are white women, white men, Asian women,
Yep.
Mexicans, all type of people who are coming out saying Minister Farrakhan is not what they said. And there have been testimony of people who have said, hey, I've heard Minister Farrakhan's name, but I had never really heard him. But now they went and started listening to the minister, and it has exposed even more people to the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So the ban is backfiring.
Hello? We're still on?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, yeah, was cutting off at that point. Yeah, definitely, when you look at the Southern Poverty Law Center, very interesting about them. At one point during their history, they were used to identify, members of the Ku Klux Klan and call out those. That's actually, those groups that actually terrorize minorities. Those are actual groups. But now, when I look at the Southern Poverty Law Center, it seems like they are just a pro-left. And that's the proper word, a pro-left agendist machine that's being used to basically go after anyone that doesn't believe in homosexuality or left-wing ideology. And in fact, they had taken a Nation of Islam off the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate registry, if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago. But speaking of hate,
you say they took us off, or people were asking for them to take us off?
From the articles that I read that the Nation of Islam was taken off.
No, they still list us as that, but we've been fighting to get ourselves removed. And I don't know if you heard of this, but I'll send you the article. Just recently, there were blacks who are members of the Southern Poverty Law Center filed lawsuits against them because of discrimination within the organization itself.
Right. Wow. Hypocrites.
Yeah. So hey, and there's probably more blacks who know. There are probably blacks within that organization that know that groups like the Nation of Islam shouldn't be listed as a hate group. But because of what we talked about earlier, oftentimes people don't want to risk their career for the truth.
One of the things, one of the things I gotta mention though too, is that Facebook to me and Instagram, these are the same companies that will show, like I just saw a video now of a black woman getting shot by a white cop. They will show videos of a black pregnant woman that got shot by a cop in I think it's Baytown, Texas. I've seen videos of attempted rapes. I've seen videos of people being beat up and punched all the time, and yet they have the nerve to put Minister Farrakhan, out as a anti-Semitic leader and this man who's filled with hate, and they're the biggest promoters of it. I think World Star is more dangerous than what Minister Farrakhan can ever do, because World Star promotes violence, they promote negativity in our community, and Facebook is the same way. Now, I think that Facebook has its benefits because I've connected with people I haven't seen in years, and I'm sure you have too. My businesses, the business that I've had, some people have reached out to me to do business for them. So I think it's good, but I think that now we're seeing a lot of negative things on the internet, and you feel free to agree or disagree with me, brother.
No, I definitely agree, man. And just like the points that you've actually made, you know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has instructed us and told us that we shouldn't be on Facebook behaving in a way that's disrespectful to somebody else, cursing somebody else out, threatening somebody else. He said that our conduct on Facebook as members of the Nation of Islam should be the same way we want to conduct ourselves off social, offline, right? So he's never used social media as a way um, to attack somebody else. It's always, if you were on his page and following him, it was always about information, education, and uplifting. But you know, this world wants to keep Black people deaf, dumb, and blind. And this is another thing too why they wanted to get the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan off of social media, because now people were able to get access to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words unedited by the media, right? Not just off of a soundbite by the media that's made to portray him as being anti-woman, anti-women, anti-Christian, anti-Semitic, or whatever. But they were able to actually hear the full context of what he said, and then that began to backfire. And that's another reason why, because you like the media was no longer the go-between. People can just go there and say, let me hear what this man said for myself.
Right. Now media has changed where I could just, yeah, at the push of a button, I can just see this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being in mind, I do want to ask, does the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Willie, does he preach hate against Jews or whites?
No, man. As there, if you go to, I'll send you the actual link and you probably can post it on your page. We put together a playlist from our mosque YouTube page where it has the clips where the minister is addressing all of these same issues that they're trying to say makes him an anti-Semite, right? There's also a clip on there where it lists all of the Black leaders who are considered anti-Semite: Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jackson, Nelson Mandela. They mentioned a bunch of them: W.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey. And so the track record, there's never been a member of the Nation of Islam who has burned a synagogue, painted a swastika on a synagogue. None of that, right? There's no private meetings where we're talking about going plan something against the Jewish community. But even if I were to do that, do you know, brother, I'll be kicked out of the Nation of Islam indefinitely. But as you know, because you read and you study and research history, they use the term anti-Semitic as a way of silencing people. Anytime somebody has a valid, legitimate criticism against Israel or the Jewish community, they label you as an anti-Semitic. And there's a video footage of a woman who was a former politician of Israel, in the Israeli government, and she acknowledged and says that term in America is used as a way to discourage criticism, to discourage people critiquing their unjust policies. And that's what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is. He's about anti-lies and anti-falsehood. And he's not afraid. Most people, they throw that anti-Semitic term on him and people get quiet. But Minister Farrakhan is not afraid of that, because he knows in his heart he is not that. And I posted something on my Instagram page today that if Jesus had a Facebook page today, his Facebook page would be banned, because there are Jewish rabbis and scholars who are saying that the New Testament is an anti-Semitic book. I just saw an article where somebody posted where this Jewish historian, a scholar, was saying that the New Testament should come with footnotes to let people know, according to them, that this is an anti-Semitic verse in the New Testament. Wow. If they say that the New Testament is an anti-Semitic book, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when he talks about the synagogue of Satan, that's not his words. That's not the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words. That's a Bible verse that was actually said by Jesus himself. So if we would have put the words of Jesus consistently on the Facebook, and we would have put his words and his teachings, then they will be able to say, yo, that is anti-Semitic. And what they fear is that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is exposing to the world the satanic teachings of the Talmud. The Talmud is not the Torah. The Talmud is a commentary written by rabbis who were racist, our historians, the Nation of Islam Research Department, you can Google them, they found that it was Jewish rabbis who assigned a racial identity to the story of the curse of the story of Ham in the Old Testament. In that, as you know, that biblical story of Ham's son, of Noah's son, was used as a justification to enslave Africans. But that came from a rabbi. So then, when the minister was called the Black Hitler, and they were putting all these terms on him, he gathered members of our nation who are researchers, and they came out with the book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. And if people were just to listen from based upon the criticism about those books and the lies about those books, you would think that they're quoting Hitler in the book. Do you know, Brother Gavin? Every scholar quoted in all volumes of the book is all Jewish rabbis, Jewish historians, Jewish thinkers. It's them. So the minister says, if you want to say that the book is anti-Semitic, then condemn the Jewish rabbis and Jewish scholars that are quoted in this book. You don't find quotes from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's all their writers from the research that our researchers went and did by going into their libraries. So for your readers, y'all got to get that book. Amazon banned that book, but you can still get so many other books off of Amazon.
The link to us, you can send it to me.
Mm-hmm. Which you want me to send you? What?
Can you tell the title of the book?
Oh, the Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. I'm gonna send it to you.
I think there were excerpts of that was put on the Nation's website after Chuck Berry, the great Chuck Berry, who was a rock and roll pioneer, died, because they talked about how certain the Jewish not songwriters but producers, the Chess Brothers, who created Chess Records, would put their names on his records as if they wrote the songs to, like, Maybelline and Johnny B. Good, and he'd realize they had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the type of stuff that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is calling out. But of course, when you do such, they label you as being anti-Semitic. They even threw that term on Michael Jackson, you know?
Yes, they did. And speaking of Michael Jackson, to get with this point, the minister knew Michael Jackson personally, isn't that right?
Yes, he did. The minister knew Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson will come to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for spiritual counseling, you know, and guidance. And that's how the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when Michael Jackson was accused of those heinous crimes toward young children, the minister defended Michael Jackson and talked about how that was not the case, right? And you mentioned earlier, you know, just recently, I didn't watch it, where they came out this documentary about it's called Neverland.
Leaving Neverland.
Leaving Neverland, and Oprah Winfrey used her platform to promote it, only to come back out to find out that many of these charges are the primary accusers of Michael Jackson, that their story was not correct, right? That it was not factual. And even the guy who they used to help put the documentary together, he expressed his doubts about it. But nonetheless, you know, they did that. But the history and the legacy of Michael Jackson has been tarnished based upon a lie.
Right. And Michael, I actually have the minister's lecture on Michael Jackson. I think it's called The Crucifixion of Michael Jackson. Where he went in detail about Michael Jackson's trials, his tribulations, and how he grew up. And yeah, I think that it was unfair to Michael, that also to mention the fact that he's been deceased for 10 years now and can't answer the charges that he's been faced with. And did you know that this one accuser, Wade Robson, was dating Michael's niece, Jackie's daughter, Brandy, while this was all going on? And they apparently dated for 7 or 8 years. And apparently he was responsible for the breakup of Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears because he slept with her.
Mm.
And he was Michael Jackson's first defense witness in that trial. And I know personally Tom Mesereau, as a criminal defense attorney, he would not have put someone on if he knew they would crumble under cross examination, that
Mm.
they would be lying for Michael Jackson. And I definitely think that his legacy, to me, can't be tarnished because what he's done is done. He was
Mhm.
found not guilty.
Mhm. Mhm. And now they came, yeah, and that's the thing, man. But it's sad, man, that they would actually to go that, and some people can't fathom how some people would pay some folks off who are falsely accusing them. Some of these people with wealth with wealth and finances, they just want peace. And if it's meant, hey, if $5 million to get you to just to leave me alone, I'll give you $5 million for my own sake. But it doesn't mean like they are guilty, But not saying that that's what Michael Jackson did, but there's another article, I'll send it to you. It's very in depth where they basically expose as well how the guy was mad because he wanted Michael Jackson to use his clout to help him break into the movie industry. And when Michael Jackson didn't do it, that's when he got on the phone and started planning. I'm going to accuse him and say that he molested my son.
You're talking about Evan Chandler.
I believe that's who it is.
Right. Well, Evan Chandler is deceased as well. He actually killed
Yeah,
himself
he
after
killed
Michael
himself.
died. And Evan Chandler actually was a dentist. He was he was Carrie Fisher's dentist.
Yes.
He even wrote in the book how he was trying to set up Michael. And
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Fisher, for those that don't know, played Princess Leia in Star Wars.
Wow.
Right. And she's deceased now herself. But Evan Chandler went on to actually screenwrite Mel Brooks's Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Wow.
So you learn new things, and I don't think many people know that about what was going on with Michael Jackson. I think they just look at the news media and they just hear or see a soundbite or they see a headline and they'll run with it.
That's it. And that's the tragedy of with this current generation. And for some generation before, it's like we don't want to read, we don't want to do the research. Just tell me what happened. If you're always relying on somebody just to give you their version of what happened, depending on that person's heart, they can guide you whatever they want to guide you in. We got to begin to start doing the research, especially now in this age of the internet, with just a push of a button, you can go and research whatever is said to see if somebody's telling the truth or lying.
Yes, sir. Speaking of which, and just keeping on Michael Jackson and the minister,
Mm-hmm.
my understanding was that Minister Farrakhan actually went to Michael's memorial service at
Mm-hmm.
the Staples Center, just like he's done with Aretha Franklin and Muhammad Ali. Was there? I take it there was no talks by having Minister speak because they knew he would have set it on fire.
Yeah, they didn't allow him to speak. Just like at the Aretha Franklin, the people from people I know who were there, the people started chanting that they wanted to hear Minister Farrakhan. They wanted to hear Minister Farrakhan speak. But people are so afraid because of this false label of anti-Semitism has been placed on him. But you saw as it relates to, like, the rappers tend to have like a greater, most of the rappers just really don't care because they already come from out of a sphere where they were not accepted by mainstream, so they really don't care. So you saw what Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was able to speak at Nipsey Hussle's services and the great impact that it had, and
Yes.
they don't realize the disservice that they're doing to all of humanity by not allowing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to share words.
Yes. Speaking and staying on that, do you has the minister said anything about the latest documentary on Michael? Has he spoken out against it, or?
I haven't heard him say anything publicly. I can ask some of those who are around him almost on a daily basis to find out. But I'm quite sure whatever he said is probably still in line with the DVD or the lecture that you mentioned, which is online, the crucifixion of Michael Jackson.
Okay, yes, and Speaking of which, he and one of the things he pointed out in that documentary was that Michael owning the rights to the Beatles and also to Sony, half of Sony's music publishing. And my understanding is that Michael tried to reach out to the minister before he died, mysteriously, with regards to the shows in London that he was supposed to do, because there was a debate over whether he actually agreed to do 50 shows versus 10 shows. Do you know anything about that? Or?
I don't know. I don't know any details about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Jackson actually did that. You remember, there's a video circulating around the net where Michael Jackson was talking about. He was talking about Sony, and he was talking about how he felt like somebody was out to actually to get him. You know what I'm saying? So it's unfortunate, man, that it's still kind of hard to fathom that Michael Jackson is deceased and then the way that he actually died. But hopefully, you know, his death is not in vain, and it helps to inspire other artists to get their paperwork right, you know, like we're seeing what Jay-Z is doing, and to empower themselves like Prince was trying to do. We got to do that, because in this day and age, we can't keep having the same histories of our entertainers and our artists being just popular, but they don't benefit from the wealth.
Do you think he was? Yeah, I heard the same thing about Prince as well, because he had his issues with his record company. Do you think there's some type of conspiracy? Do you think these men were murdered?
I don't have any evidence to prove that or say anything, but in this society, you know, in America, and how America feels about black men and women, especially when black men and women who have wealth begin to come into consciousness, I wouldn't put it past the society, because one of the things that, as Albert Mr. Louis Farrakhan teaches, that this society has always worked to prevent is they've always worked to try to prevent the the marriage of wealth and consciousness. Because when you have money and you have the consciousness, or you're a dangerous man or woman, because now you have the means, the financial means, to bring into existence the thought that you have in your mind.
Right. I see that. Well, yeah, most definitely. I don't know if you saw the Netflix special with Sam Cooke. They talked about.
Oh, powerful.
Right.
Powerful.
Well, he's a perfect example of wealth and consciousness that you're talking about, as he was friends with Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown, and how they were talking about civil rights. And Sam wanted to own his publishing. He went about trying to do that. My understanding is that after Sam died, he was actually trying to fire his manager, and he didn't get a chance to, because he noticed that his manager had on their paperwork he was the owner of Tracy Limited, which was his publishing company. And so when Sam died, his wife, it's my understanding from the information I gathered, sold all of the rights to his music to his manager for $100,000.
Dang. And I think from the documentary, it had showed what Sam Cooke had realized, when the guy had worked the paperwork up in such a way with the LLC or whatever, where all the rights was his and not Sam Cooke's.
Right. That's what happened.
If I'm not mistaken, he was a Jewish the guy who was working with. And that's not to say all of them are that way, but you see that pattern.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You see that pattern. And that relationship has to be broken up.
Well, here's another interesting fact. Well, two actually. That LLC was created. Do you know what city that was in?
Don't tell me New Orleans.
It was. It was New Orleans. And on top of that, Sam Cooke was going to fire Klein right before he died, but he didn't get a chance to. And Arnold Klein, or Aaron Klein, actually was the manager for both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And I've heard from I've heard this, but one of the reasons why those groups broke up, well, the Beatles in particular, was because Klein had been taking money. Now, I don't know the whole gist of that, but that's something that I've heard. It wouldn't surprise me if it were true. But
as well.
Yes. Now someone left a question. Yes, I'm taking questions to Chill 722. Ramon Pierre asks, Brother Willie, how productive has the conflict resolution training been in New Orleans? How many conflicts has been resolved, or do you all keep those type of statistics?
Well, when we first started off, we weren't keeping those statistics, but we began and we have started. So locally here in the city, we've done like 86, right? And those 86 range from simple misunderstandings to people getting into fights, people threatening to get into fights, or people threatening to use guns or firing guns at somebody or striking somebody with some type of weapon. And so we've been successful by God's grace. And our goal is we strive to be proactive, because the reality of it is when it gets to somebody getting shot and somebody losing their life, it makes it very difficult because most people don't know that level of forgiveness. So we tried to get there in the early stages, because in the early stages, it makes it more easier for us to point out how what your reason for being angry at this person is really over nothing. And oftentimes, Brother Gavin and Brother Ramon, is over simple misunderstanding that people don't even realize, like, yo, this doesn't make any sense, right? So that's where we at. And just about last two Saturdays ago, we did a conflict resolution event dealing with conflict resolution, youth, and social media, because we're seeing that many of these conflicts with young people are developing in these social media platforms, and they're spilling over to the schools and they're spilling over to the community. So I still see, even though we've been working this social media, this conflict resolution initiative since 2011, I still see it as being in its infant form. We still haven't seen the full manifestation of it.
Cool. I think Chill722 is asking, was I taking questions? He didn't respond yet if he had one. But I'll move on to something else. As you know, we were just talking earlier about the Bill Cosby situation. What is, has Minister Farrakhan ever had any relationship with Dr. Cosby? I've heard him speak a little bit about him.
Yes. If you go in, I think it was at, somebody passed. Wasn't Michael Jackson. I think at the Muhammad Ali funeral services. There's a photo, I can find it, where Bill Cosby left his seat to come and greet the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And from what I've been told, I've heard that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Cosby have had phone conversations. I don't know the details of it. And the public stuff that I've heard the minister say, he said that he was just talking about in general, but he mentioned Bill Cosby, that, let's say if Bill Cosby was guilty of these things he's been accused of, nobody can defend somebody for taking advantage of women. And that was the general sense of what the minister was saying. But also the minister, and I'm going to send you some stuff by the research team, was talking about and encouraging us as a people to not forget the time frame in which these things were said to take place with Bill Cosby. You hear people talk about the couching sofa.
Casting couch, yeah.
The what was it called?
The casting couch.
The casting couch, right? Where they were doing these things, and these women were thinking that they can curry favor with these men of power to get a certain position. And one of the things, like, I don't know all of the cases, but some of the ones that I have read about, it made me bring some questions up. Like, There was some where the woman would say, he drugged me, but then you'll go right back to him the next day. He did this, and then you will see him again. And it just, to me, it was like strange. Like, how did this man drug you and take advantage of you, and then you go back the next day around other people as if nothing didn't happen? And some of those were kind of like, and I think in regards to, more about this from a legal aspect, how dirty of a trick that they played on him, where they got this man to come and talk about something in a way where he felt that it would be kept secret and would not be revealed and used against him in the future. And they came back and they used in his recent conviction, they used what he did in the previous deposition that he took, with the understanding that it could not be used against him. But they use the legality or a loophole that was set there by the judge to come back and use it against him in this day and time. Am I right on that?
Well, yes, but a little clarification. What happened was that during the 4th of July weekend of 2015, I think it was 2014 or 2015, which really the courts are closed. So I don't know why a judge would write this. There was a federal judge who basically he allowed uh, the release of the deposition. And this was a federal judge. And the Court of Appeals, while they affirmed his decision, they also criticized it because it was closed and said he should never have released it. Because if it was sealed and it was agreed to by the parties that this was it, this was a final resolution, then there would be no more court. There was no need for court. Bill Cosby was given what's called nol pros, meaning there would be no prosecution. And the prosecutor in the case, his name was Bruce Castor. He had agreed not to prosecute Mr. Cosby because he did not believe Andrea Constance. While he wasn't defending Bill Cosby, he felt that her story was too inconsistent. And even at the trials, she gave different stories about what happened, about what time it was, the number of times she saw Mr. Cosby. In fact, it's my understanding that she got concert tickets after this happened to go to one of his shows with her parents. He also gave her, she's been to his hotel rooms, which and this is after one incident where he apparently touched her on her leg and she said she felt uncomfortable. So what it looked like more was that they had a relationship, and when the relationship went south, she decided to file and pursue a rape claim. And apparently there was a witness who admitted or testified at this trial. The judge wouldn't allow her in the first trial, but in the retrial, he allowed Margot Jackson to testify to that fact that she said she would set up a celebrity if he could. Not to mention also the fact that there was a juror on the trial who supposedly said, we can all go home, he's guilty, during the voir dire selection. And the judge allowed him to stay on even after questioning him and not replacing him with an alternate. So those are what's called appealable issues. And I think if Bill Cosby has a fair and impartial court of appeals that isn't influenced by the Me Too movement, I think that he would have a great chance of getting this, getting released. And I think definitely when you look at the fact that at 82 years old, he's blind, and you label him as a sex offender where he's going to be placed on a sex registry for the rest of his life, which honestly, he may not be here for long. But that shows you they made an end to have him handcuffed and he walked him out with all of the cameras there. They were making an example of him because he's a proxy for Black Americans, Black males in particular, in this Me Too movement. By the way, since we're talking about the subject, did you know that Harvey Weinstein's hearing is now being done in secret?
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, that's me sending you those links. But I'm not, from a lawyer perspective. Explain why that is so.
Why Harvey Weinstein's case?
Like why is this hearing? Why is it going to be in secret? How was he able to get that done?
Well, this was a pre-trial hearing. My understanding, I don't know if it's a discovery motions that was set. I believe that was. But what happens is that he felt, obviously, and the court and the prosecutor agreed as well, that the outside media would be playing a factor in this trial. So he probably felt that he couldn't get a fair and impartial hearing with the presence of the media in the courtroom, and the judge decided to control the cameras and so forth in the courtroom and make the meeting done in secret. Now, there is an old Supreme Court case called Shepard versus Maxwell. And if you're not familiar with that case, you followers can Google it. I can actually put it in an uplink. I've talked about it before on his channel. But Samuel Shepard was a man accused of murdering his wife, his pregnant wife, and he was sentenced to life in prison for her murder. Well, he appealed it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and the basis of his appeal was that he did not believe he got a fair and impartial trial in Cleveland, Ohio. because of the president's presence of the media source. You know, Dorothy Kilgallen, who was one of the biggest press journalists at the time, she was present. In fact, the judge who was there allegedly said out loud, "There's no question about it. He's guilty as hell." During the trial, you know, the press stacking up the rows and the the junkets there, all in the box, just snapping cameras. Everything just seemed to be biased, and I saw some of that with Bill Cosby. Young lady who went to the trial, she noted how every time the prosecution spoke, the journalist for NBC would write down what the prosecution was saying, but then when the defense attorneys got up to speak, they wouldn't they wouldn't write anything down.
Mm.
You know, the presence of these witnesses who were screaming out loud, the judge was allowing all of that stuff. You know, he has to be the referee of the courtroom and basically ensure that the defendant has a fair, impartial trial proceeding. And if that is not done, then you have grounds for an appeal. And
Mm.
a judge is in error.
Well, I hope that the brother get, but you know, ultimately still in these people's, you know, legal system.
Yeah. And you know, I think it goes back to, you've seen a lot of black people, and you mentioned D.L. Hughley. He had been very critical of Dr. Cosby, as well as uh, several other people that I know. I've heard Marsha Warfield talked about him, saying she believed he was guilty. You know, Paul Mooney's sons, I've seen them here. Hannibal Buress was the one who made the joke. It's my understanding that Hannibal Buress actually, and I've heard this, someone wrote that for him. I heard that Judd Apatow helped him craft that, and Judd Apatow has been very critical of both Michael Jackson and Bill Cosby as of late. But yes, that is just part of you know, and we don't have too many elders like Mr. Cosby, people from the era. You know, those black comedians, most of them are deceased now.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Pryor, Flip Wilson, Red Fox, Dick Gregory just passed not too long ago, who the minister gave a eulogy at his funeral as well. You know, yeah, I just think about that. It's sad. But yeah, but the minister, he has spoken about Mr. Cosby's trial.
He not in depth publicly. I just remember he just mentioned about in regards to, you know, how there are many others who are doing this casting couch type of stuff, and you know, Cosby has been made to be the face of it. You know, Cosby has just been made to be the face of it.
Yes.
But if you look at the stuff that I sent you, that's a brother who's on the research team, and he has some very good research. So I'd encourage you to check that out and even post it for your viewers so they can look at it on their own as well.
Well, let me ask you in general, do you feel that this, since we're talking about the Me Too movement, do you feel that that is now the new lynch mob for the black man in America? Because I
think, you know, remember the Me Too movement was started by the sister. I can't think of her name, and then it got hijacked by white women. And you know, there's a Dr. Tommy Curry, and somebody else just wrote a book. It was on WWLD. It was talking about her property, and it was talking about the role that white women played in slavery. You know, I believe personally that the sister who started with the Me Too movement, she sincerely was trying to bring attention to a situation in the black community that needs to be addressed, which is sexual assault. But I believe that it has gotten, you know, aspects of the movement has gotten hijacked and has been used where they're trying to make black, you know, as some people feel, trying to make black men appear to be the face of this Me Too movement. And the thing is, like, but as Dr. Tommy Curry, I believe his name, I don't know if you ever read his material, he's showing that the stats of black men being raped is probably even higher. But we live in a society that is not cool or the thing to do for black males to come out and say that they were raped. Like if you look at Charlemagne, how he talks about his sexual abuse. You look at Lil Wayne, how he talks about it. It was like, yo, I broke my virgin when I was with my babysitter. Like, no, dude, you were molested, you know. But despite whatever the people's motives may be with the Me Too movement, those who don't have sincere motives, I do believe that it is a issue that needs attention, man, because the sexual assault that is taking place in the Black community amongst with Black girls needs to really be brought to a halt. You know, if you just saw the situation that took place in, was it in Houston, Texas, with the fiance?
Right. Well, yeah, the stepfather or fiance,
And
supposed.
I'm quite sure that they're gonna probably come out and show that he may have been even sexually assaulting that the young girl.
Right, and honestly, he needs his ass whipped.
Yeah, shoot. And it's just, you know, it is a real problem, but this dominant society
But
has never not seized on an opportunity to vilify Black men.
right. Well, I will say this to you: those issues should be addressed, but there also has to be due process, and
Definitely.
it's very dangerous because I wouldn't want my nephews who are 6 and 5 years old, but they grew up in a society now where if they, let's say, are college students or they're football players, because and they have a good career going for them, and one day some girls flirt with them, and they go and do what, whether they kiss or they go have sexual relations. I don't want them to come back and have to face a rape charge for something that was consensual just because the girl has a regret about it. It's just like the in Kansas, think of his name, but he's doing 12 years for rape that probably didn't happen. There was no DNA evidence. There was no rape kit. They found the only DNA they found was that his saliva was on a girl's breast, but he admitted he kissed her, and she never, my understanding, there was no proof that he actually raped her. But yet, a predominantly white jury or all white jury said otherwise, and he's going to be in jail in his early 30s, and his life is over, because once you register as a sex offender, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like what you said as well too, we have to be, even in this fight to address sexual assault, you also have to be careful to make sure that due process is taking place, right? Because we've seen, what's the brother? He was a college student, promising football star. Ended up, yeah, and they're about to make a movie about him, and he was falsely charged, right?
Right.
So I definitely agree that you got to get the facts, because somebody's life is on the line. And just as we are in a society where we hear about the stories of women who have been sexually assaulted and abused, we also live in a society where men who have been falsely accused of something. So we definitely want to get the facts. But with circumstances like this, with experiences, with topics like that, not topics, but incidents, this issue is very very polarizing. You're either going to have people who support the victim without any question of investigation, or you're going to have people that's going to support the person who is being accused. And it creates a very tense environment. And really, sometimes I feel there's nothing really that you can say that's, when you speak into that about this, your words are not going to be, is either you're going to feel, the people who are victims going to feel like you are taking the side of those who are being accused, and then those who are being accused are going to feel like, yeah, you're taking the side of the victim. So it's just a tough situation. But I think it will help us as a community and individuals that we begin to start looking into ways that we can prevent this. And one of the things that we have to do, we're men, and me and you are doing this, is begin to start teaching our sons about the value of women, and what the do's and don'ts, what to do and what not to do. And that's something that we can do as men,
Oh yeah, no doubt. I understand that. I have another question from Chill722. He asks, what can we do to support the minister as a result of the ban? Does the Nation of Islam have other social media outlets?
There is, we're in the development of having, well, you know, we have our social media. You can still go to www.finalcall.com. That's something. Now, as relates to on Instagram and Facebook, you know, they've taken them off. But what I would encourage people to do, find the Instagram page and the Facebook page of the local mosque or study group there in your city, because that social media page will still be posting video and quotes by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Nation of Islam, over the last going on probably about a year, has launched our own. It's kind of like our own version of Netflix. It's called NFA Never Fall Again, NFA Studios. So on there you can get content that's from, like, Dr. Wesley has a show, Brother Ben has a show. You can get information. You have lectures by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that you can't find on YouTube. But in addition to that, and I'm glad you mentioned this now, and I want to post about this. Now we need to begin to start pushing more those black people who have created social media apps. There's a bunch of them. There's some, and I have to familiarize. I know our brother Dr. Boyce Watkins has one called Black Enough, right? And there are other people who have they're black owned and black created social media platforms. So those who are watching this interview, if you know of any, start posting them. I know I'm going to do my research and I'm going to start posting them and signing up for them as well.
Yes, I have an app that is currently in development. I won't say too much. I'm working out the process on it. So I'm working with someone. So I like to do that. Yeah, you know, if they say no, we say yes. You know, and the main thing is, you know, we get out there and build it for our own. You know, but I don't know if anyone else has any other questions, or if there's anything else, Brother Willie, you wanted to add. Someone asked, do you think, well, Brother Chill 722 asked another question. Do you think the ban was a test and a social experiment?
I think the ban, we have to realize that, the ban, first they tried to get the minister kicked off of Twitter. The ban was just another one of the plays that they have ran. Like right now, while me and you are doing these interviews, those who are enemy of the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, and anybody who's trying to really uplift and elevate black people, they're having meetings on how they can stop them. So I think the ban is just one of the first things that's one of the many things that they're planning right now. But as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him, he said, brother, they're going to try to set traps for you, but you will set them all off, but they won't catch you in any of them. Every time they try to do something where they think that they're hurting the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, history has shown that we come out on top. They thought that they were going to cause a rekindle or open up the wound that existed between the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X's family by having Malcolm X's daughter be persuaded by an informant who was Jewish about planning to take the life of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And they wanted the Nation of Islam to a war to break out between the Nation of Islam and that family. That didn't work. The minister said, I'm not pressing charges. He even led a rally to raise money for her bail. Then Betty Shabazz and the minister met during the Apollo in Harlem, right? Then you see what took place with Barack Obama. They thought that the minister was going to be in his feelings, that Barack denounced me, and the minister said, no, man, listen, don't worry about that. So with this ban, when they tried to do this, every time they've tried to ban, they've banned the minister in New England and in the United Cape, but we have a flourishing community over there that started as a result of a cassette tape. So I'm looking at now, we're seeing how the ban, I'm on social media, more and more people are checking for the videos of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So they miscalculated.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Brother Will, we got to do this again, and we got to
Oh,
actually get
definitely, man.
together again. I'll call you some more, and we can do things because I see there's a development, and perhaps that we could do that. I think the nation and can do in the community, even economically, if it's one of the brothers, opening businesses here, or even us working together, whether to stop the violence in our communities. Because
Well, you put something on my mind with that LOC, man. So when I get some downtime to think about it, and we can relaunch it here in the city of New Orleans, I definitely would like your help because we have to begin to start letting our people, our brothers and sisters know who are not Muslims, but they want to work with us in capacity to produce something that benefit for our people. So we definitely can. Thank you for this opportunity, my brother. Thank you for your viewers, and look forward to the next time.
most definitely. Now, I don't know if you have YouTube, but what I would like for you to do, if you can get your followers to subscribe to my channel and you can subscribe to the channel, I post different things. Oh, before we leave, there was a topic I wanted to talk about that I wanted to bring in.
What's that?
I heard about this before. Well, I don't know if you've heard of what happened recently with Steph Curry and Aisha Curry, his wife, comment she made on a Red Talk table about how she wanted attention from men because she was. It sounded like she was basically competing with her husband. She was envious of the attention he was getting, and I wanted to know what your thoughts was about that because I've heard, I've talked to different people, and I try not to talk about this stuff, whether I'm at work, but sometimes it comes up because we're real relaxed in there, and I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, my thinking was, you know, I wouldn't have mentioned that if I was a married man. I think the roles would have been reversed, and I said that about my wife. How I want female groupies. I think everyone will be calling for me to would say that I need to be divorced from her.
Mhm. I believe that would, if he would have said that statement like that, it would have not come off in that way. And I can understand what sister's perspective. And I don't think that, well, this is the thing. She's at this, it was on Jada Pinkett's show, right? And her show is all about being authentic, is all about being open and bringing your vulnerabilities. And I think that Steph Curry's wife was really just being, she just built up the courage to just to be open about of being vulnerable. That that sometimes she doesn't feel attracted because she doesn't experience the level of attention that her husband feels. Remember a couple of seasons ago when they had the woman, she had the blue on and a tight fitting thing. And like you've heard the stories that what athletes do where women, there have been some athletes where they say they come into the hotel and there's a woman laying naked in the bed that they don't even know.
Right.
So I think that, she was just saying like, she to will want attention. But what she has to realize is that you don't need that because you have a
Right.
man that's in your life. He's obviously committed to you and your family. So don't get caught up in that. But that's the pressure of living in a society where it feels like if you're not getting all these likes and inboxes in your social media pages, then you're not attractive. And that's not the case.
Well, I think the other thing aspect of that too is that she's got to remember part of the reason why a lot of men aren't hollering at her is because they know that they can't compete. Being that her husband is not only a well-respected individual. A lot of people love Steph Curry; they respect him, and
They respect him.
he's worth $200 million. So,
Yeah.
brother like me knows I would never even have a chance with her. Plus, and this is
Exactly.
no disrespect to her. I don't find her that attractive. That's just my preference. And
I
then
understand.
having three daughters, as a straight man, my single man myself, I don't know if I could date someone. I won't say I wouldn't date someone with the child. Obviously, people in my age group, or in our age group,
Mhm.
Willie, they have children now, and that's just the way it
Mhm.
is. It's not like
And I
you
think
come.
she has to realize that, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the Mosaic Elijah Muhammad told him this. He said that when a woman is in love with a man, when her heart is filled with love in a man, she won't look for anybody else, right?
Right.
And every time you see Aisha Curry, she's always talking about and showing the love for her husband. So in addition to him making $200 million, in addition to all of that, brothers will look at her and say, man, it's a waste of time because this lady is totally committed to this man. So that's another reason. And only and any man who knows that this, like, it's no secret that this woman is married. So anybody who be shooting stuff into her DMs is a low down person. You feel what I'm saying? So you don't need that type of attention from somebody like that.
Right. I think people that would do that is desperate. Just like somebody that would try to holler at Beyonce, because honestly, you know, Beyonce being married to Jay-Z, their net worth, I don't know if you notice, is $800 million. And a lot of people know men know they can't compete with that. And you know, Beyonce, even so, I'm not saying she isn't attractive, but she's not somebody, you know, that we think of. Like back in the day when Halle Berry was fine, you know, before she did Monsters Ball and was, you know, and, you know, dating while she was messing around. She was dating, I'm sorry, not messing around. She was married to David Justice and then to Eric Benet and so forth. You know, she was very, you know, when she did Boomerang, every man was trying to get with her. But now, you know, she has baggage. I mean, she's still hot, but but she, you know, she's got kids and people I've heard stories about her. Now, yeah, I mean, different stories about her behavior, but you know, I don't know her personally, so I don't judge. But I mean, would I try and holler at somebody like that? Probably not. It's just, it's not working.
Yeah, you know. So that's it. But I know I wasn't following it heavy, but I saw that Steph Curry came out and said something in support of his wife. But it's it is what it is, man. So, you know, hopefully they've had the talks and he reassured her and let her know that, yo, I don't want, you know, sometimes just we dealing with male and female relations. I know we're about to go. It's Ramadan. I got breaking my fast. But I know that sometimes, brothers, the women in our life, they do things and say certain things when they want to get when they want to get attention from the man in their life, right? Like sometimes you have a woman say something like, I was at the store today and this guy just came up to me and gave me his phone number or tried to give me his number. And they really are trying to like, yo, why are you telling me that? But what they really are trying to say, yo, you better appreciate me more because other people are looking. And maybe that's what she was trying to say. Like, you know, maybe she was trying to give a hint to her husband, like, yo, I need more attention. I need to feel more value. And if you obviously she's months away from having she's months away from having her most recent child. She's picked up weight. So she may not be feeling the most attractive or the most value. And she may just need that from her husband.
Yes. Yes. Well, Brother Willie, thank you again. It's always a pleasure. We will do this again and we'll talk some more.
Thank you.
Certainly about things that are going on in the city. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Brother Willie Muhammad and I am Gavin Richard. This was another episode of G-Boot 2786. Gavin Richard presents. We will be back again this week. Until then, peace and blessings. Love you.
Peace.
Peace.